Okay, let's see what I can do with this table of data with a cat right there. He won't move, I'm sorry. All right, so what I would like to do is I would like to break down by genre. So I would like to sort this column. There's a couple of ways you can do that. If I click in this upper left-hand corner that selects all my data, I can go to the data tab. I'm already on it. You may have been on the home tab. I can go to the data tab. I can tell it to sort. And here it says, well, what do you want to sort by? I do the down arrow and I want to sort by genre. So I click that and I click OK. And notice I see all my action, I see all my adventure and all that good stuff. So that's the first thing I could do. Another thing that's actually kind of cool, so I'm going to select all my data again, is this filter. What filter does is it says I only want to see certain data. I filter it out. So I'm going to click filter. Notice some little arrows showed up here. Now what I could do is I could click here and deselect them all and say I only want to see the action films. So I click that and notice that's all I see. It's the action films. Everything else went away. So what I probably would do is start another spreadsheet, and I can just do that with the little plus down here, and then get me some column headings. So I know I want to do genre. I know I want to do sample size, which we call N. Okay, so the number of movies. I want to find the mean. I want to find the standard deviation. I want to find the median. I want to find the minimum and the maximum. And hopefully I can type maximum, right? All right. So if you can't read all of that, you can click in between and drag so I can see all that. So that looks good. And then I would actually have to go back here, and I could kind of get it right here is the list of all the different genres. I actually have a cheat sheet up here on a different monitor. So I'm going to type these in, which is action, adventure, animation, biography, comedy, crime, documentary, drama, and horror. And as I can see, documentaries kind of spilling over, so I'm going to click and drag that cell. And so what this is going to end up being is going to be a table that I'm going to put in Word for my report. So let's make it pretty, right? Let's bold some stuff. So I'm going to bold that. Heck, let's put the little fill thing. Looks like that needs to be a little bit longer. I can actually go up here and use the borders and make it look like a table. It looks like a table. All right, so I'm all set. So the first thing I want to do is let's just do the action. I want to to count, I can't breathe, to count how many action films there are. So I can look here and I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If you notice over here, the counting, it goes to 48, but it starts at 2. So that really means there's 7 of them, right? 7. Where'd I get 7 from? 47. All right, so there would be 47 action films. I want to get the mean, the average, and what I'm looking at here is I'm looking up here is what I'm doing, is I want to get the average of the total gross of all the action films. So how I would do that, so all I really care about is this column right here. I would go back over here to my sheet and I would do equals average. I type that and you can see it shows up down here. Now my cat's going to get up and get in the way. I open a parentheses and I tell it the numbers I want to average. Well, there ain't no way I want to type all these numbers. So I go back to sheet 1. I click and drag all the values. I think that's it right there. I clicked and dragged and highlighted all of the values, and then I go back to my sheet 2 and oh no, I didn't mean do that. I mess up. See, teachers can mess up. Equals average. highlight the values. I actually needed to close my parentheses while I was here. So click and drag, I've highlighted the values, and now I close my parentheses. So equals average, highlight the values, close the parentheses, and bam, there is my average. Since these are in gross income, if you want to, you can put a dollar sign. I can click dollar sign right there, and I actually get the mean average. All right, so this would be the mean average of all the action films. If I want to do standard deviation, I would do equal the standard deviation formula, STDEV, open a parentheses. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go select that data. So I'm going to go back here and select this data, click it and drag it, close my parentheses, hit enter, and this gives me my standard deviation, my spread, okay, of my data. I would find the median equals MEDIAN, open parentheses. Remember when you're going, hey, you're going too fast? You got that pause button on the video, right? So equals median, open parentheses, go select my total gross, la, 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 close my parentheses, I get my median, once again, dollar sign. My minimum, which just means the lowest value, I could probably find it, but guess what? Excel has a formula for it, equals MIN, open a parentheses, click and drag my data to find the minimum. Probably that one right there, right? Nope, there was one even smaller, and dollar sign. And then finally, my maximum equals MAX, open a parentheses, click and drag to highlight my total gross, and I get, did I close my parentheses? Yeah, I get my maximum value. Now, just a couple of things. One, notice what happened here. I just need to extend the cell. You just can't see it. Okay, so that would be my maximum. But notice what happened is, one, I'm kind of getting tired of putting the dollar sign for all of these. You could highlight all of these cells and click the dollar sign. That way, when you have a number in here, it'll automatically default to a dollar sign. Okay. All right. So I've done the action row for you. Let's do one more. Make sure you're okay. So I need to do the adventure. So let's go back here to genre, get rid of action, and now let's go to adventure. Ooh, that's kind of nice. There's not as many of them here. So what I could do is I could sit here and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, or I can see the 59. So notice the counting, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 55, 55. Basically, I'm counting them. And so my N is 11. Guess how I'm going to find the mean? You got it. Equal sign, average, open parentheses, go here, highlight the total gross, close my parentheses, I get that value. Standard deviation equals STDEV, open a parentheses, go highlight my data. This one's a little easier because there's not as much data. Close my parentheses. My median equals MEDIAN. Highlight my data. So you can see what I'm doing is I'm making a table. Well, I'm trying to talk and type and it ain't working right. I'm making a table that is based off of the main spreadsheet, but I'm kind of doing this over to the side that I can't spell minimum. Oh, you don't type minimum out. Equals MIN. See, this is what I get for trying to talk and type. So let me finish this. And then finally, max. And as you can see, they're putting dollar signs, right? And so I have my max, and I close my parentheses. So then what I would do is I would have my Word document, because you're not going to turn in the Excel. I don't even need to see your Excel. You're going to type, you know, all this good stuff that they tell you to do. So it says calculate the mean, the standard deviation, and all that good stuff. And so then what I would do is I would go back, so blah, 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 my report. I would go back to Excel and highlight this data, right click or Control C, however you copy data, and then go into Word and paste it. Now the problem is the spreadsheet's too wide. So I can do a couple of things. Probably the easiest thing to do is go to Layout. I can mess with the margins because I know the maximum is the last over here. So I could say, well, change my margins, or if I change it to landscape, it'll actually let me move things around. So I could like drag, I'm clicking and dragging these to try to get a little bit more space, right? You may not like the way that it's wrapping and stuff. So what you could do, I'm gonna highlight all this. Well, I thought I highlighted it, and then right click, and I'm going to cut. I'm going to get rid of it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it to actually not put the decimal places, because that's killing me, right? The actual decimal places. And the dollar signs probably are killing me as well. So I'm going to right click on these cells, format cells, go to number, and just tell it to do a number. So I right clicked on the cells, do a number, no decimal places. And notice what happens now is, and I'm double clicking on these or clicking and dragging them, it's going to make my table data smaller. So I go here, I copy it, I go here and I paste it. Let's not forget I'm still in landscape, so I'll go back to portrait. But now I have a table I can deal with, right? So I can talk about the different things in here. What has the greater variability? Well, if these are the only two values I have, it'd be adventure because it has the biggest standard deviation. And so this is where you're kind of talking about everything. This looks kind of weird that wrapped, so I can click and drag that. See, all I'm doing is clicking and dragging, so I'm not seeing that actual wrapping. And now look how nice, it's kind of playing around with the table to get it formatted the way you want it. And then you go through and you talk about everything. But this is what I mean by when I put in the hint. So if you go to the hint, I have the average, the standard deviation, the median, the minimum, the max. And you can do the same thing with quartiles. Rosetta's going to get me because she showed up in my chat down there. Is if you want to then do quartiles, well, you can do the same thing. I probably would put them, because you see this is getting kind of, a little wide. And so you can do the quartiles as well. I don't really require you to do the quartiles. I know it says that in the directions, but I think this data is good enough. However, if you wanted to do quartiles, so there is a formula equals QU. Notice when you start typing, you kind of see the formulas here. And I give you this one. So you'd open a parentheses. The array is your data. So let me move down so I'm actually on adventure. So equals quartile. Open a parentheses would be my data, which is my total gross. Notice now when I type a comma, it asks what quartile do you want? Well, if you pick quartile 2, that'll give you the median. Let's say you want the third quartile. Okay, so I double click on that, close the parentheses, and that gives me the value of the third quartile. So I kind of leave the quartiles up to you, not a big deal to me. I think this is enough information, okay, for you to be able to discuss. Students always say, because I think it says you need 700 words. Well, I can't figure out how to do enough words. Tell me what the definitions, what does this mean? This would mean the average, right? The average of the total gross of action. Some students like to do in their actual paper, they will go down and do like a little bulleted list. Like, so in other words, they'll say action, the number of action films equals what, 47. The average of the, what was it? The average of the total gross sales. Okay, so that's right there. Average of total gross sales equals that value right there, 93,602,863, and so on. Okay, so this is probably the harder part, the Excel, right? then you can talk about this and say, well, what has the highest average? What has the biggest spread? What has the largest median? Who was the max? Okay, things like that. So I hope this kind of helps you get the Excel part down. Good luck.